Throughout NBA history, thousands of athletes have graced professional basketball courts. While most maintain respectable careers and lives, some players have been involved in serious off-court incidents that cast shadows over their athletic achievements. Here are two such stories that reveal the complex realities behind professional sports careers. Deshaawn Stevenson entered the NBA with tremendous promise, once compared to Michael Jordan during his high school career. However, his path to professional basketball was marked by family tragedy and personal mistakes that would define his legacy. Stevenson's childhood was shaped by his father, Darrell's mental illness. Diagnosed with schizophrenia, Darrell had once harbored dreams of professional basketball, but struggled with severe psychological challenges. His condition led to increasingly dangerous behavior, including threats against family members and criminal activity to survive financially. The situation reached its tragic conclusion in 1992 when Darrell, under the influence of cocaine, killed his own mother during a domestic altercation. This devastating family history left young Deshaawn to be raised by his mother's family and stepfather, who provided much-needed stability. Despite his difficult background, Stevenson excelled athletically, averaging 30.4 points, 9.7 rebounds, and 6.2 assists during his senior year of high school. His recruitment to the University of Kansas was complicated when his SAT scores dramatically improved from 450 as a sophomore to 1,150 as a senior, raising questions about academic integrity. Rather than address these concerns, Stevenson declared for the NBA draft and was selected 23rd overall by the Utah Jazz in 2000. Stevenson's rookie season was disappointing, averaging just 2 points per game. However, his on-court struggles were overshadowed by a serious off-court incident during the 2001 offseason. At age 20, Stevenson and a friend met with two underage girls, ages 14 and 15, in the Fresno area. According to police reports and recorded phone conversations, Stevenson provided alcohol to the minors before engaging in sexual activity with them. When confronted by one of the victims' mothers in a recorded phone call, Stevenson admitted to his actions. He ultimately pleaded no contest to the charges, receiving a misdemeanor conviction, 2 years probation, and 100 hours of community service. The NBA suspended him for just 3 games. Despite this serious conviction, Stevenson continued his NBA career for 12 additional seasons. His post-playing financial decisions, including installing an ATM in his home, reflected continued poor judgment that eventually led to bankruptcy. The minimal consequences Stevenson faced for his actions remain controversial, particularly given the serious nature of his crimes involving minors. Tate George is remembered by basketball fans for one of the most dramatic shots in NCAA tournament history. With 1 second remaining in a 1990 Elite Eight game, George caught a full-court pass and hit the game-winning shot to send the University of Connecticut to the Final Four. This memorable moment helped George get selected 22nd overall by the New Jersey Nets in the 1990 NBA draft. However, his professional career was unremarkable. Over 3 seasons with the Nets, he averaged just 4 points per game before finishing his career with minimal playing time for the Milwaukee Bucks. George retired with approximately $2 million in career earnings at age 26, facing the common challenge many former athletes encounter, transitioning to post-playing career success. George appeared to find his post-basketball calling in real estate development, establishing the George Group. The company claimed to own and manage over $500 million in assets across Connecticut and New Jersey's wealthy areas. George leveraged his NBA reputation to attract investors, appealing to people excited about doing business with a former professional athlete. The venture appeared successful, with George earning more than he had during his playing career. Investigation revealed that George's real estate empire was entirely fraudulent. The George Group operated as a classic Ponzi scheme, using new investor money to pay returns to earlier investors, while maintaining no actual income-generating properties. For 6 years, George successfully maintained this deception, targeting fellow former athletes and other wealthy individuals. The scheme eventually collapsed when payments began to delay and stop entirely, prompting investor complaints to authorities. When authorities investigated, they discovered the George Group held no legitimate assets. Despite George's claims that development projects were merely delayed, the evidence was clear. He had orchestrated a sophisticated fraud that exploited his athletic reputation. In court, George was sentenced to 9 years in prison for his role in the multi-million-dollar scheme, demonstrating that athletic fame provides no protection from the consequences of financial crimes. These cases illustrate how professional athletic success doesn't guarantee good judgment or moral behavior. While most NBA players transition successfully to post-career lives, these examples serve as reminders that talent on the court doesn't excuse serious misconduct off it. The stories of Stevenson and George highlight the importance of accountability, regardless of athletic achievement or public status. They also demonstrate how the consequences of poor decisions can extend far beyond individual careers, affecting victims, families, and communities. Ruben Patterson exemplified the type of second-round draft pick who leveraged pure determination to secure multiple NBA contracts throughout his decade-long career. While never achieving star status, he significantly exceeded expectations for someone selected so late in the draft. Patterson cultivated his reputation as a defensive specialist, particularly branding himself as the Kobe Stopper, though this self-proclaimed nickname became more of a running joke than genuine recognition. Following a modest rookie campaign in Los Angeles, where he averaged just 2 points per game, Patterson found his opportunity with the Seattle Supersonics, where he flourished by scoring over 11 points in his sophomore season. His most productive years occurred during his second and third seasons in Seattle, but this period also marked the beginning of a troubling pattern of reckless behavior and criminal activity. Patterson's legal troubles commenced in June 2000 with an assault charge stemming from an incident outside a Cleveland nightclub where he broke a man's jaw. This resulted in a fine and 3-game suspension, but represented merely the opening chapter of his legal saga. A far more serious accusation emerged in September of that same year when his 24-year-old live-in nanny alleged attempted sexual assault. The nanny, employed to care for Patterson's 2 children, claimed the incident occurred while Patterson's wife was hospitalized recovering from cosmetic surgery. According to court documents, the alleged assault took place on the evening of September 25th, when the nanny entered Patterson's bedroom as part of her routine to check on the youngest child. She discovered Patterson lying unclothed on the bed. The nanny alleged that Patterson made unwanted advances, reportedly saying, "Come on, let's do it," before forcefully grabbing her and initiating an assault. According to her statement, she managed to escape after being coerced into performing a sexual act under duress before fleeing the room. These charges devastated Patterson's life and career trajectory. While he denied any criminal wrongdoing, Patterson ultimately accepted a plea agreement, pleading guilty to third-degree attempted rape. This conviction required him to register as a sex offender, a legal designation that would shadow him throughout his remaining career and beyond. Patterson consistently maintained that the encounter was consensual adultery rather than assault, attempting to frame the accusations as marital infidelity rather than criminal behavior. Nevertheless, the plea deal legally branded him, creating both personal and professional consequences. The sex offender registration brought persistent challenges and social stigma throughout his NBA tenure, subjecting him to ridicule both in locker rooms and on basketball courts. Teammates, most notably Shawn Kemp, regularly tormented Patterson by taping magazine centerfolds and images of women dressed as naughty nannies to his locker, openly mocking the circumstances surrounding his conviction. Patterson's problematic behavior continued unabated following this incident. In 2001, he attacked a man for scratching his car and faced subsequent arrest for domestic abuse and drunk driving. He later encountered financial legal troubles, including failure to pay child support during his post-playing career, and became implicated in an insurance fraud scheme that recently resulted in Big Baby Davis's imprisonment. Patterson's presence on Portland's infamous Jail Blazers roster of the early 2000s seemed almost inevitable, given the team's collection of players with extensive criminal records. The behind-the-scenes dysfunction during this era could easily fill an entire documentary, but Patterson's most notorious incident occurred during a team practice altercation. Patterson and Zach Randolph never developed chemistry during their Portland years together. Patterson was a veteran who had been committing crimes while registered as a sex offender for several years, while Randolph was a rookie with alleged connections to criminal organizations whom veteran players enjoyed hazing. This volatile combination predictably exploded during practice. Although Patterson initially squared off with a different jailblazer, Randolph saw his opportunity and delivered a devastating sucker punch to Patterson's face, fracturing his eye socket. Randolph immediately recognized the severity of his actions and became genuinely fearful of Patterson's potential retaliation. Following the incident, Randolph sought refuge at teammate Dale Davis's house for several days, convinced that Patterson might appear at his residence armed and ready for violent revenge. Patterson remained furious for an extended period, creating an atmosphere of legitimate fear and tension for Randolph. This certainly represented the family-friendly environment Portland was cultivating during this era. One could spend hours examining the criminal records of virtually any Jailblazers player, but for brevity's sake, let's explore what Patterson's practice opponent was doing during his free time. Qyntel Woods spent only a year and a half with the Jailblazers, but he received quite an education about NBA life by joining a roster packed with players who spent their downtime committing various crimes. Woods certainly proved he belonged in that company. During his exceptionally brief NBA career, Woods couldn't accumulate as many charges as Ruben Patterson, but he certainly distinguished himself as potentially the team's least intelligent member. Woods' most infamous blunder occurred after being pulled over during his Portland tenure, while smoke billowed from his Cadillac windows. Woods was driving without a valid license, and when the officer requested his license and registration, Woods incredibly produced his basketball trading card as identification. This incident revealed Woods as genuinely intellectually limited, though his real scandal was yet to unfold. Woods became the subject of numerous police calls after suspicious activities were observed at his residence. During a police raid of his home, authorities discovered disturbing evidence of animal abuse, including several dogs that appeared injured or trained for fighting purposes. Woods faced multiple animal cruelty charges, which significantly damaged both his reputation and career prospects. The investigation revealed Woods' involvement in systematic dog mistreatment, including failing to provide adequate care and allowing the animals to be used in brutal fighting competitions. While Woods wasn't directly accused of participating in actual dogfights, he was heavily involved in the operation and facilitated the abuse through various means. The incident shocked observers not only due to dogfighting's brutal nature, but because it involved a professional athlete who had achieved fame and fortune. The NBA immediately suspended Woods, and the Portland Trail Blazers acted swiftly by waiving him from their roster. His career, which had shown some promise, was abruptly terminated by this scandal. Woods later pleaded guilty to 1 count of animal cruelty in 2006. Although he faced minimal jail time, the case permanently tarnished his career and reputation. Following this incident, Woods' NBA career effectively ended. He had brief stints with the Blazers, Miami Heat, and Memphis Grizzlies, but his involvement in the dogfighting operation completely overshadowed any athletic accomplishments, with no tenure lasting more than a few games. The scandal became the defining moment of his professional life, with swift and severe consequences. The dogfighting charges and subsequent public outrage prevented Woods from ever establishing stability in the league again. Woods' actions remain largely overlooked due to his insignificant playing career, which raises questions about why Bernard King's similar actions receive comparable treatment despite his Hall of Fame status. Bernard King stands among the most prolific scorers ever to grace the hardwood, establishing himself as one of his generation's premier talents, with a career average exceeding 22 points per game across 14 seasons. During his absolute peak years, King averaged over 32 points nightly, showcasing the explosive athleticism that made him legendary. His reputation as someone who could overcome any adversity became central to his identity, though his story contains complexities that challenge any simple comeback narrative. King's resilience manifested repeatedly through his ability to return from devastating injuries, including a remarkable season where he nearly averaged 30 points per game at age 34 following multiple career-threatening surgeries. However, his time away from basketball wasn't solely due to physical setbacks, as personal demons led to actions that complicate his legacy significantly. The foundation for King's struggles traced back to an incredibly challenging childhood. His unsupportive mother frequently subjected him to physical abuse and never attended any of his basketball games, even as he gained national recognition. This toxic family environment set him down destructive pathways from an early age, creating trauma that would haunt him throughout his life. College brought tremendous pressure for King, who faced multiple stressors simultaneously. First, his stardom meant constant scrutiny as he averaged 25 points per game. Second, he reportedly experienced frequent confrontations with police due to racial tensions. Third, his unhealthy coping mechanisms for dealing with life's pressures were gradually consuming him from within. King's relationship with alcohol became particularly destructive, with frequent blackouts becoming commonplace. Minor drug offenses and drunk driving incidents during his college years were often dismissed, but they served as ominous warning signs of future troubles that would eventually derail his promising trajectory. Despite these issues, King's collegiate success led to his selection 7th overall by the newly relocated New Jersey Nets. His talent was undeniable, as evidenced by his rookie season statistics of 24 points and 9 rebounds per game from the small forward position. These impressive numbers for a rebuilding franchise clearly indicated they had found their cornerstone player to build around. King improved in his sophomore campaign, averaging nearly 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists as the Nets assembled pieces around their budding superstar. Unfortunately, despite being one of the NBA's premier athletes, the organization decided after just 2 seasons that King's services were no longer wanted due to escalating off-court problems. His mistakes during this period were particularly egregious, including breaking into the UT Athletics building to steal a television shortly after being drafted and being discovered by police sleeping in his car with cocaine. These incidents prompted the Nets to trade King after his 2nd season to the Utah Jazz in exchange for Rich Kelly, an older center with significantly less talent who averaged just 10 points per game. This trade seemed bizarre considering the Nets had clearly discovered gold in King's abilities, but the organization recognized that his drinking problem had reached dangerous levels. The situation would reach its absolute nadir during his Utah tenure. Despite being healthy, King played only 19 games for the Jazz, averaging just 9 points per game, because he faced serious legal troubles. 5 women came forward alleging sexual misconduct during his brief time in Salt Lake City. These accusations were severe, including 3 counts of forcible sodomy and 2 counts of forcible sexual assault. When presented with these allegations, King underwent multiple lie detector tests, which he passed while claiming no memory of the alleged incidents due to being severely intoxicated beyond blackout levels during the times in question. Obviously, neither outsiders nor apparently King himself could verify what actually occurred on those nights. Sexual crimes have always been difficult to prosecute, and during that era, they were nearly impossible without confessions. Following the lie detector examinations, King pleaded guilty to reduced charges of attempted forcible sexual abuse, avoiding jail time by paying a fine. These represented King's darkest period, and interestingly, internet coverage of these events remains surprisingly limited, likely because the NBA prefers keeping such matters quiet. After this troubled year involving serious criminal allegations, the Golden State Warriors signed King the following season, allowing him to return to NBA action as if nothing had happened, even earning Comeback Player of the Year honors. While King identified his addiction battles as his darkest days, even after receiving major second chances and building a Hall of Fame career, he continued encountering legal troubles despite his wealth. Shortly after retiring from basketball, King was arrested for assaulting a 22-year-old woman by forcibly grabbing her neck. Later, he was arrested in New York for battering his wife, who told authorities he had pushed her to the ground 3 times, leaving her with black eyes, facial bruises, and forehead swelling. These charges were dropped after King agreed to attend marriage counseling sessions. Athletes certainly don't always serve as ideal role models, and digging deeper into basketball history reveals disturbing stories involving even seemingly admirable figures. Unfortunately, players like Josh Primo demonstrate that problematic behavior continues plaguing the modern NBA. Raw yet talented players represent high-risk, high-reward investments for organizations. Players like Dante Exum and Michael Carter-Williams struggled in the NBA primarily because they failed developing solid professional-level skill foundations, leaving their natural talents unable to flourish against elite competition. Conversely, players like Dejounte Murray demonstrate how proper development can transform rough prospects into versatile, complete players who attract attention from championship-caliber teams. San Antonio, having successfully developed Murray, acquired Josh Primo, an extremely young but promising talent, planning to replicate their previous developmental success with another highly athletic prospect. Most experts projected Primo as a late first-round selection in the 2021 draft, but the Spurs shocked everyone by choosing him 12th overall, demonstrating their willingness to gamble on untapped potential. At 6 feet 6 inches and just 18 years old, Primo immediately became the NBA's youngest player. Although raw and far from NBA ready, the Spurs believed in his potential for significant impact. Known for their exceptional player development system, San Antonio provided Primo opportunities to learn from mistakes on court, giving fans glimpses of his versatile game and scoring capabilities. During his rookie season, the rebuilding Spurs needed players who could develop alongside their growing roster. As Primo received increased playing time, he demonstrated steady improvement that seemed to justify their investment. By season's end, he had even earned starting lineup opportunities. When the Spurs exercised his contract option, Primo appeared integral to their rebuilding plans and a cornerstone for their future. Then, shockingly, just 2 weeks after the extension, San Antonio abruptly released Primo just 4 games into the 2022 to 2023 season. This unexpected release bewildered NBA fans, analysts, and team insiders alike. As Adrian Wojnarowski commented, waiving Primo so suddenly without explanation was fairly unprecedented and jarring. The basketball world frantically searched for answers to this unprecedented decision, while speculation ran rampant. In a public statement following his release, Primo explained he was receiving professional help for trauma, intensifying public curiosity about the underlying reasons. Just 1 day later, the mystery unraveled when allegations surfaced that Primo had inappropriately exposed himself to several women, including the Spurs' own psychologist. The psychologist filed a lawsuit against the Spurs, claiming the organization failed taking action after multiple incidents of Primo exposing himself, with 9 alleged incidents dating back to early in the 2021 season. This psychologist's lawsuit transformed the story into one of that year's most unusual and controversial sports tales. Although the psychologist's claims weren't tried in criminal court, NBA and legal investigations found some substance to the allegations. Primo maintains his conduct wasn't intentional, and the league found no evidence of misconduct beyond brief exposures, according to the NBA investigation. How these exposures were supposedly accidental remains unclear and, as most assume, likely represents complete nonsense. The Spurs quickly reached a settlement with the psychologist, likely involving substantial payouts to resolve the lawsuit and move past the controversy. With no criminal charges filed, Primo's legal battles ended, but damage to his reputation and career was irreversible. Fans and analysts speculated this might mark Primo's premature NBA career ending before reaching his 20th birthday. Nearly a year after his release, it seemed increasingly unlikely he would return to the NBA. However, in September 2023, the Lakers signed him to a low-risk, high-reward two-way contract, signaling a potential redemption path. Yet the signing brought media scrutiny to the Lakers, who faced questions about adding such a controversial player. Likely after 2 brief appearances, the Lakers waived Primo as his statistical performance showed no improvement, never shooting above 40% from the field across his 3 NBA seasons. Given that off-court controversies have completely overshadowed his athletic reputation, it's difficult imagining Josh Primo ever returning to the NBA in any meaningful capacity again. Tom Payne's basketball career represents one of the most troubling chapters in sports history. Born in Louisville, Kentucky on November 19, 1950, Payne's exceptional height made him a standout from an early age. At Shawnee High School, Payne's 7-foot frame and athletic ability drew significant attention from college recruiters. His basketball prowess led to an offer from the University of Kentucky, where he would make history in 1970 as the first African-American player to join the program. Payne's arrival at Kentucky marked a significant moment for a university that had previously resisted racial integration in athletics. Despite facing considerable pressure and hostility, he performed well on the court, averaging 16.9 points and 10 rebounds per game during the 1970 to 1971 season and establishing himself as a dominant presence in the SEC. After one season, Payne declared for the 1971 NBA Draft, where the Atlanta Hawks selected him 20th overall. At 7 feet 2 inches, he drew comparisons to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and generated considerable excitement about his professional potential. However, his NBA career lasted only 29 games. The end of Payne's basketball career came not from injury or poor performance, but from criminal conduct. In 1972, during his rookie season, he was arrested, convicted, and sentenced for rape in Georgia. This conviction effectively ended his professional basketball career. Following his release from prison 6 years later, Payne's criminal behavior continued. In 1983, he was again arrested and charged with rape. Court records detail a particularly violent assault that occurred on Valentine's Day, where the victim described being attacked in her home after returning from a date. Payne was subsequently incarcerated for nearly 2 decades before being released in 2000. After violating parole, he served an additional 19 years in prison and was released in 2019. Since his final release, Payne has expressed remorse for his actions and has attempted to work with young people to help them avoid similar paths. However, his legacy remains defined by his criminal convictions rather than his basketball achievements. Jabari Bird's story demonstrates how quickly a promising basketball career can unravel due to serious personal issues. A highly regarded prospect who reached professional basketball, Bird's career ended before it truly began due to domestic violence charges. Bird was a 6'6" shooting guard who ranked among the top high school prospects nationally with various recruiting services, placing him between 15th and 35th in his class. During his college career at the University of California, he steadily improved his production over 4 seasons, developing into a promising NBA prospect. Despite his college success, Bird fell to the second round of the 2017 NBA Draft, where the Boston Celtics selected him 56th overall. While he had areas to improve in his game, including shot selection and strength, his biggest challenge appeared to be mental health issues. The Celtics confirmed that Bird was working with mental health professionals upon entering the league. Mental health support in professional sports has become increasingly recognized as important, with players like Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan helping to normalize seeking such assistance. However, on September 17, 2018, before the NBA season began, Bird was arrested on charges of assault, kidnapping, and strangulation involving his girlfriend, effectively ending his professional career. According to police reports and court documents, the incident began with a confrontation about infidelity and escalated into violence. The victim reported being strangled multiple times while Bird allegedly made death threats. She eventually lost consciousness before managing to escape when Bird suffered what appeared to be a seizure. The case also involved a Celtics trainer who contacted authorities after receiving threatening text messages from the victim's phone, including threats of self-harm. Bird ultimately admitted to the assault charges and was sentenced to 2 months of house arrest, mandatory counseling, and 2 years of probation. During the sentencing hearing, the victim spoke about the lasting trauma from the attack and how it had affected her ability to trust others. Bird's case highlights ongoing concerns about domestic violence in professional sports, particularly given recent controversies involving other NBA players like Miles Bridges, who has continued his career despite similar charges. There's no place in the NBA for domestic abusers, or at least that's how it should be. But the story of Miles Bridges? Yeah, that kind of flips the whole idea on its head, because somehow after everything that went down, dude is playing better than ever, getting paid, and acting like nothing even happened. Miles Bridges had it all, like everything. Awards, money most people couldn't even dream about, and he was lined up as one of the faces of the Charlotte Hornets right alongside LaMelo Ball. Those two were supposed to be the future, the spark to bring a franchise back that hadn't tasted success in forever. And for a while it looked like Bridges was the guy. Then in the blink of an eye, the world turned on him. When he first hit the league, Bridges was a pleasant surprise for Charlotte. I mean, let's be real, Charlotte doesn't usually get much of the basketball spotlight. As a rookie, he puts up 7.5 points, 4 rebounds. Not flashy, but promising. You could tell the potential was there. Athletic, versatile defender, could shoot, score, even create a bit. Year 2, he bumps it to 13 and 6. Then LaMelo shows up. Bridges takes a step back on offense, lets Melo shine, but he doesn't slow down. He adapts, knocking down threes at a 40% clip on higher volume, stepping up as a defender, filling gaps all over the floor. That's the kind of dude teams throw big money at, the glue guy, someone who can defend, shoot, roll, spot up, even create mismatches with his handles. And by 2022, he makes that leap. He's not even the top shooter on the team, but he leads the Hornets in scoring with 20 a night. First winning season since Kemba Walker left in 2016. Fans notice, media notices, he's looking like the star they've been waiting for. He even wins the Rick Bonnell Award for professionalism and media cooperation, like he's seen as the face of the team. But right as free agency hits, and right when All-Star and Most Improved Player buzz is building, boom, headlines, but not the good kind. June 29th, 2022, Miles turns himself in. Domestic violence charges, photos of the mother of his kids with brutal injuries, broken nose, concussion, rib injuries, bruises, all in front of their kids. The public reaction was instant and brutal. He pleads no contest, gets a felony charge, 3 years probation. NBA suspends him for 30 games, but with technicalities, it's really just 10. He sits out the 2022-23 season, rejects Charlotte's $7.5 million offer, while the team basically just waits it out. By 2023, he's back, signs a $7.9 million deal, puts up 21 and 7. Then, boom, 3 years, $75 million contract, a full comeback like nothing happened. He's hooping, fans are cheering, and it's almost like people just forgot. It's one of the strangest, most uncomfortable situations we've seen in the league. And as wild as that is, the next dude's story is just flat out bizarre. Darrell Allums. Now Allen, his actual NBA career was nothing special. Honestly, you probably never even heard of him. But his life story, straight up one of the weirdest, most chaotic in NBA history. Back in high school at Linwood, he was a star. 18 points, 18 boards, and he hits 2 clutch free throws to win a championship. That got him a scholarship to UCLA. Should have been the start of something big, but coaching drama there derailed him, and he never really reached that level. Dallas Mavericks drafted him briefly, but he never stuck. Instead, he found himself overseas playing in the Philippines and Switzerland. Over there, he was loved, finally felt appreciated. But then, he tears a ligament in his knee, and just like that, basketball is over. He comes back to LA working a mailroom job, but he's miserable. Meanwhile, his drug problem, specifically cocaine, spirals out of control. He'd been dabbling since the late 70s, but by the mid-80s it had taken over his life. Divorce, rehab programs, broke, living in motels, spending everything on drugs. And when the money ran out, he turned to crime. Starts with stealing from Target stores, gets probation, drug tests, fails them. Then in '87, he starts doing something so random it's almost unbelievable. Robbing Domino's pizza delivery drivers. Like literally, he'd order pizza, then rob the driver at knife point or with a screwdriver, over and over. It went on until one delivery guy recognized his voice and reported him. Police track his car, arrest him. He tries to represent himself in court, says some of the robberies happened after he was already locked up. Didn't matter. Multiple Domino's employees ID'd him. He got convicted on 8 counts, sentenced to 9 years. 9 years. For robbing like 14 Domino's delivery drivers. Wildest NBA player turned criminal story ever. But not every downfall is bizarre. Some are just plain tragic. And that's the story of Mookie Blaylock. Blaylock is one of those names that real NBA fans respect, but casuals don't know. He played in the 90s, one of the best eras ever. Jordan, Hakeem, Shaq. So he never really got the spotlight. But Mookie was a defensive machine. In fact, Pearl Jam literally named themselves Mookie Blaylock before changing it. At Oklahoma, he was elite, almost 4 steals a game, leading them to the NCAA title game. drafted 12th overall by the Nets in '89, and immediately proved himself. 11 straight years averaging more than 2 steals a game. That's insane. By '93 to '94, he's putting up 14 points, 5 boards, 10 assists, nearly 3 steals, even grabbing MVP votes. In 1997, he's averaging 17 points, 5 boards, 6 assists, and 2.7 steals. His impact was everywhere. He ends up 6th all-time in steal percentage, ahead of legends like Jordan and Chris Paul. 5 seasons with over 200 steals. He was like a Drew Holiday before Drew Holiday. But since he wasn't a flashy scorer and never played on a contender, he never got his shine. Then after his career, things went bad. By the 2000s, he was deep in alcoholism, racking up DUIs. And in 2013, it all came crashing down, literally. He crossed the center line in his SUV, hit another car head-on, killed a woman named Monica Murphy, and seriously injured her husband. He pled guilty to vehicular manslaughter, got prison time and probation. For a guy who was so respected on the court, it was a heartbreaking downfall. And finally, the story that makes all of these look tame. Karl Malone. On the court, Malone is one of the greatest to ever do it. 2 MVPs, 14 All-Star appearances, 2nd all-time in scoring. The mailman delivered, right? But off the court, his choices left a stain you just can't wash out. Raised in a tough environment in Louisiana, he had that underdog, work hard and make it story. But long before he was in the NBA, he made decisions that should have ended everything. While at Louisiana Tech, Malone fathered a child with Gloria Bell. The disturbing part? Gloria was 13, Malone was 20. That's not just a bad decision, that's criminal. But since he was already a local hero, nothing happened. Her parents didn't want to ruin his future, hoping instead he'd take responsibility. He didn't. When their son Demetrius was born, Malone denied paternity. Gloria's parents went to court, asking for just $200 a week in child support. The court proved Malone was the father and set it at $125. Malone, a millionaire athlete, still fought it, saying it was too much. For years, he refused to acknowledge Demetrius. Finally, in 1996, a DNA test proved 99% probability. But when Demetrius reached out, Malone basically told him, "Too late, you're on your own." Demetrius later said it was like being born from a sperm donor. And if that wasn't bad enough, at 17, Malone also fathered twins with another woman, Benita Ford. He ignored them too, until the media exposed it in 1998. By then, the twins were already 17. Only then did he acknowledge them. His daughter Cheryl went on to star in the WNBA, but Malone's reputation was wrecked. He's tried to make peace with some of his kids since, but his relationship with Demetrius is still distant. And through all of this, Malone has never really given a full apology or accountability. So yeah, on the court, he's one of the greats. But off it, a completely different story. And that's just part 1 of the darker side of NBA history. And if you made it all the way here, thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe and like for the next part. I'll catch you boys in the next one. Peace out.